Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I'm your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB. It is Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock p.m., the night before Thanksgiving. In this episode, we're going to be going over the two Thursday games. We got the morning game between the Lions and the Texans, and then we're going to cover the Cowboys and the Washington football team. It's a bummer we don't get to go over the Pittsburgh and the Ravens game until later in the week. But we'll do our best to get through these two games tomorrow, and we can open up for questions at the end. But for now, we are going to hop into a screen share here, and we're going to look at the start-sit charts. We're going to go into, let's see here. I might have to update my system settings real quick here so we can update these, get these guys checked. Let's see here. Let me just enter my password, and I'm just trying to make sure this is good to go. So later. So hold on here. Technical difficulties. I'm trying to get my screen share going here. There we go. Okay, so we're going to be going over the start-sit charts for tomorrow's games. We're going to look at the practice report. So I think we're going to start there because there's a couple injury concerns that we're going to have to look for when we get to the Lions and the Texans game. So we're going to start there. Let's first look at Detroit because they have the most injuries. And hold on here. Click on Detroit. So we're looking at, the receivers and the running backs here. Danny Amendola has been listed out. He didn't practice all week. He got a limited in yesterday, but he's not going to play. Kenny Golladay here. He got a limited on Monday, which was hopeful for us, but no practice the last two games, so they're probably playing it safe. Don't have much to play for here, so they're going to keep him out in this one as well. And then DeAndre Swift. We got DeAndre Swift in the concussion protocol. They still haven't active, like they said, he's been limited the last 2 days, so there's a chance that he will play tomorrow, but we're going to have to watch and check back in the morning and make sure that he's good to go. If he plays, we're going to play him in all of our lineups for sure. It's got a really good matchup going up against Houston. And then on the Houston depth chart here, we're going to see Randall Cobb's been placed on IR, so he's out at least 3 weeks with a toe injury. You're going to have Kenny Stills here out as well. So number 3 and number 4 receivers are out for the Houston Texans. So let's go ahead and look at the start-sit charts here. We're going to be basically just probably leaning into the Houston side for this one. So we look here, let's see, I got Deshaun Watson, of course, up top. I just want to start actually, and we're going to look at the fantasy points allowed to the positions here. We have a lot of green matchups to take advantage of here. So the Texans defense is 21st here, ranked against quarterback. They allow about 19 points to the quarterback. They are one of the worst, look at it. We got the 31st worst team and the 32nd team against the run. So hopefully DeAndre Swift can go. We'll see what the Texans can do with Duke Johnson, but these are both really good matchups for the running games here. I know the Texans allow the most rushing yards to the running back, so this is going to be a good spot for Swift. And the Lions, I mean, they are the worst team against the run in PPR leagues here. So a lot of points to the running backs, and then both teams are pretty poor against the wide receivers as well. So the Texans allowing, basically almost both teams are allowing 39, 40 points in PPR to the wide receivers. And then on the tight end position here, Texans middle of the road, 12.6, and the Lions are one of the better teams against the tight end, 10.4. So how do we break that down? Looking at the start-sit charts here, of course, I think you're starting Deshaun Watson for sure as the quarterback one. Matt Stafford, to me, just because Kenny Galladay's out and we don't know if DeAndre Swift's playing, I'm probably going to lean towards leaving Stafford on the bench. We're going to like some guys like TJ Hawkinson and Marvin Jones. So I guess if you needed to start Matt Stafford, he's a fringe quarterback one for me, but definitely more preferred in a super flex league as your quarterback two. Looking at the running back, so I think Duke Johnson, he's been pretty disappointing the last couple games for us. I just want to pull up the opportunity report for both these teams so we can kind of get a better idea of what's going on here. But Duke Johnson, we know David Johnson's on IR for at least another week, I believe. So Duke Johnson's going to continue to lead the team in running back snaps. He had 77% last week, 10 carries, only 15 yards. It was the Patriots defense, so we'll kind of give him the benefit of the doubt here. He did have 5 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards. So this is a worst case scenario. I think he ended up with 6.5 points. He's going to get more than 6.5 points tomorrow. Again, he's playing against the team that is giving up the most PPR points to the running back position here. So I have a really good feeling for Duke Johnson. I know he's been not so generous the last 2 weekends with the points, but I think we can lean into Duke Johnson. We can trust that, hey, he's going to be on the field. He's going to be the guy getting the carries. Last week, they only had 2 running backs take snaps, and that was CJ Procise, number 2 here. He only got three carries and 2 targets here. So I know Duke Johnson will be the primary running back tomorrow for the Texans, so make sure you get him. He's an RB2 in PPR leagues. You can flex him whatever you need, but I feel pretty good about him getting double digits tomorrow. And then the receivers here, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. We know Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills are both out here. So this is going to be a pretty high volume day for Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, just looking at what they did last week, because I'm pretty sure I thought Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills, they both only had 5 and 4 snaps. These guys got hurt early. Randall Cobb did catch the touchdown early too. So this could be going, towards Fuller and Cooks' way. So without these 2 guys for most of the game, you see Will Fuller 98% snaps, Brandon Cooks 93% snaps. Only 8 targets and 5 targets. But again, the Texans were they were up ahead, for the most part of the game here. So they didn't really have to open it up. Watson did have a good game with 344 yards. You see Fuller with 80, Cooks for 85. I like both these guys tomorrow. I think there's a good opportunity for both these guys to score touchdowns. And they're both going to probably be, I would imagine they're both in the 8 to 10 target range. Pretty good odds for a touchdown tomorrow. One of them is probably going to hit 100 yards. So make sure you start Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks. And then the thing that caught my eye is because Cobb and Stills got hurt in this game, we saw Deshaun Watson really lean on the tight end. So you see 6 targets for Jordan Akins, 3 for Pharaoh Brown, and 2 for Darren Fells. So that's 11 total targets to the tight ends on Sunday. And then we see 5 catches for Akins, 2 for Pharaoh Brown, and 2 for Darren Fells. So a lot of action going in the tight ends with Cobb and Kenny Stills out. I think I'm going to recommend Jordan Akins here as I was kind of touting him, the other night in the waiver wire show. So I do think Jordan Akins has a potential here for a good tight end 1 spot, even though the Lions are pretty decent here against the tight end position. I just think that Jordan Akins, man, it only really takes 1 play for us to make our day in the tight end spot. And, he had 5 catches, 83 yards last week. We got a question real quick in the chat room from our guy, the Bob Ross. What's going on, Bob Ross? He's wondering if T. Higgins is unplayable right now. So they announced Brandon Allen's going to be the starting quarterback here, which makes me a little bit nervous. If we remember Brandon Allen from last year, he did play in the Denver Broncos system before. He actually got a start or 2, I think, before Drew Lock even saw the field. So Denver gave him a little bit of trial. I do think I'm worried about pretty much all the receivers for Cincinnati right now. We know, and now Giovanni Bernard's hurt too. So at this point, Tyler Boyd might be the only guy that's usable, and he's barely a safe wide receiver 3 flex. I'm actually pretty nervous for Higgins. If you have, if you have a stronger option, or if there's a guy off the waiver wire like Russell Gage, I think I might be looking that way. I'd probably start one of the Panthers receivers like Curtis Samuel over him. I'm nervous for T. Higgins, and I think we've been locked into him pretty much as a wide receiver 3 for the whole season so far. And I think at this point, I'm probably going to pivot from him, and I want to see what this offense looks like before I trust it. The Giants do have a pretty decent defense against the receivers, so I'm kind of nervous about all my Bengals right now, and I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to bench Higgins, especially if you have, Bob Ross. Who do we have for potential bench guys that you could put over your guy T. Higgins here? I think that would help me clarify things. Because T. Higgins could still be a kind of like what the heck flex kind of situation. I just want to see what the numbers were. I think Burrow ended up playing 3 full quarters in that game and got hurt in the 4th, if I remember correctly. So I didn't get all that numbers in there, but Joe Burrow, 74%. Okay, so it was basically 3 quarters. And T. Higgins is still going to be their leading receiver in snaps. So I guess if something were to happen, it could be T. Higgins. But again, it's Brandon Allen. I don't really know how much I can trust our guy T. Higgins here. But kind of getting back to the Texans and the Lions game, I did cover the part here for the Houston Texans side of things. We're starting Deshaun Watson, Duke Johnson. I know he's been disappointing, but we're going to go back to him at least one more time. Again, you're not going to get this green 32 matchup that the Lions present. the rest of the way. So I think if Duke Johnson can't do it now, then we can officially, not trust him. So Duke Johnson, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. And then I think if you need a tight end, Jordan Akins can be your guy here. Kiki Cutie is going to be the guy that benefits from Randall Cobb and Stills being out. He's going to be their number 3 receiver. I think I'll be interested in him in DraftKings and FanDuel lineups tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to say to whip him out there in your redraft or your dynasty leagues or anything like that, but just something to keep an eye on here. Looking at our guy Bob Ross here. So he asked if Higgins was unplayable now. He does have Will Fuller. I'm starting Will Fuller over him for sure. And then Christian Kirk. Kirk does have a tough matchup against the Patriots, but if you think about Stephon Gilmore maybe being on DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Christian Kirk is the sneaky guy that gets a lot of targets on Sunday. So I think I'm definitely starting Christian Kirk over T. Higgins at this point. I think I would. I think that makes sense to me. Looks like we got a new person here hanging out here. Is that MimI03LO3? Thanks for hanging out. What's going on? But just talking about Texans and the Lions here. I think we covered the Texans side pretty well. If you guys have any more questions about your Texans, you can fire those away. But what do we do with our Detroit Lions? Oh man. Okay, so we got a relevant question here with our guy Bob Ross. I think the one guy that I am confident in tomorrow, just because the tight end position is such a crapshoot, and TJ Hawkinson's playing. I mean, outside of Kelsey, Waller, Mark Andrews is close, but he's got a really tough matchup against the Steelers. And I did see he was on the injury report too. If you want to, just because Kenny Galladay's out, I do think TJ Hawkinson, if there's anyone that's going to have success tomorrow, it's going to be TJ Hawkinson or Marvin Jones. So if you're comfortable with rolling out TJ Hawkinson, I think I'm okay with it. Mark Andrews, we do know that Nick Boyle is probably out for the rest of the season, and I noticed that Mark Andrews is his snap rates they jumped up quite high. So you see Mark Andrews here, he played on 86% of the snaps. I think that was a season high. So he did get 7 targets, 5 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. But it's Pittsburgh and the Steelers. I guess here, let me show you this here. So we're looking at fantasy points here allowed to the tight end position. And the Steelers, number 1 team against the tight end here, 7.8 points per game. If we roll down and look for the Texans, where are the Texans at here? Texans are middle of the field here, so they allow about 12.6. With Kenny Galladay out, I think I'm going to lean into the better matchup here with TJ Hawkinson. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully we can get a touchdown out of him. But just out of curiosity, I'm going to see what the Steelers have been allowing for tight ends. So in a PPR format, this is what the best – they've only allowed 2 double-digit games by tight ends. We do see Mark Andrews here, week 8. He had 6.2. Dalton Schultz, 8.8. It's really not much going on here. So you're basically going against the grain, and you're hoping that he can get double digits here. I think TJ Hawkinson's probably the better play there. So that's what I would do. Thanks for the question there. Let's see here. And let's get back to the Detroit Lions side of the ball here. So Matt Stafford going up against the Texans. We did note that the Texans are middle of the road here against quarterback. They allow 18.5. This team was shut out last weekend. Essentially, my outlook for the Lions will change pretty much, good or bad based on if DeAndre Swift plays. I'm assuming he's going to play. He's been limited the last 2 days. So yesterday and today he was limited. Tomorrow morning, before our lineups are set, we'll have to double check and see if DeAndre Swift is playing. If Swift is in, I like the Lions' outlook a lot more, and then I'm more excited about Matt Stafford. But for now, he's just a quarterback 2. If Swift plays, it's fire him up, all systems go. He's a running back 2. I did note that we're playing with the 2 worst teams against the running backs. These guys allow the most PPR points here, 31st and 32nd here. So I like Swift a lot. And then Hawkinson and Marvin Jones, these are going to be the leading target guys for the day here. There's an opportunity that maybe Marvin Hall, he's going to be the 3rd receiver or the 2nd receiver. Maybe he makes a play or 2. Rookie Quintez Cephas might get some snaps. And if Swift plays, we're not touching Kerryon or Adrian Peterson here. If Swift is out, and if you're desperate and you need a running back 2, maybe it's one of these guys, but I don't know. I don't really feel good with that. We got our guy Robert Owens here. What's going on, Rob? Happy Thanksgiving, man. We got Rob asking here, do you roll with Duke Johnson in this game? I think I'm rolling with Duke Johnson in this game because I know it's been a frustrating last 2 weekends with Duke Johnson. We thought he would be a much better, producer with David Johnson out, but because we're playing the Lions, and the Lions are giving up the most PPR points, to the position. I just think We're expecting Watson to have a really good game. We're expecting Fuller, Cooks. That should lead to more touches for Duke Johnson. And I did highlight before, we were looking at the opportunity report for Houston. And I mean, they don't really have a backup running back. So we know Duke Johnson's going to probably be on the field 75 to 80% of the time. You see Duke Johnson 77% of the snaps. And they only played one other running back, and that was CJ Procise, who comes in for a couple catches here. But I mean, if you're telling me we're going to get at least 10 carries out of Duke and 5 targets out of Duke against the worst team, against the running back, I think we're going to be okay for double-digit points there. So I do like Duke Johnson in this one, and I think he can help you guys in your RB2 or your flex spot in PPR leagues. So thanks for the question, Rob. Good to see you in the chat room again. So Texans Lions, that's going to cover that one. I think if you guys do have any more questions on this game, I can answer those or come back to them. I think I'm going to move on to the next game. But again, Kenny Stills, Randall Cobb, both out. Danny Amendola and Kenny Golladay, both out. And we're pending DeAndre Swift here. So again, we'll check in the morning. If DeAndre Swift plays, we're going to fire him up as a running back too. Really good matchup here. The Texans allow the most rushing yards to the running backs, and the Lions are just the worst in fantasy format. So interesting game. I'm kind of excited about that one. And then we got moving on here to the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys. So I did want to pull up. These two teams already did play. So we got Washington here. Let's just go to ESPN. I'm going to pull up this game from earlier in the year. Man, it wasn't pretty earlier in the year when these two teams played. I think this was the game where the Cowboys failed to score a touchdown, and our guy, I don't remember who was quarterback. It might have been Kyle Allen at the time. But 25-3, Washington football team. So let's just kind of review the box score. This game was in Washington. We see Kyle Allen, 15-25, 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. It wouldn't surprise me to see Alex Smith with something like this. Andy Dalton just struggled, and this was the game where Dalton got hurt at the end. This was the concussion game for Dalton. So 9 for 19, 75 yards, and 1 interception. So not a good game at all for anybody here. You see Zeke, 12 for 45. Amari Cooper was fine, so 7 for 80. We're comfortable with that, but basically nobody else was usable here. And on the Washington side, oh man, Antonio Gibson, 20 for 128 and a touchdown. We're starting him for sure. We see J.D. McKissick, 5 for 35. And because the game script here, Washington 25-3, they didn't really have to pass the ball a ton. So that kind of limited J.D. McKissick. You see only 2 catches on 2 targets. But of course, we're starting Terry McLaurin. Logan Thomas, potential tight end 1 streamer. I think he could be usable. We see 4 for 60 and a touchdown. Now, this game was with Kyle Allen, and we're going to see Alex Smith start. And I think the other thing to note here is the Dallas offensive line, Zach Martin. I don't think he played in this one. And last week was the first game that Dallas had a pretty healthy offensive line, and they went to Minnesota and won. So I'm kind of feeling like the Cowboys offense, everything that they did this game against the Washington football team, this is worst case scenario. We're not going to see something like this. I think the Cowboys are going to put up a good fight. First place for the NFC East is going to be on the line with the win here. So I'm actually expecting this game to be kind of a really fun back and forth, and we'll see who makes the most plays. But I guess before we get into it, I did want to pull up the practice reports. I think both teams are actually pretty healthy right now. So starting with Dallas, we're looking at nobody's been ruled out, so that's great. Offensive line looks fine. Just a backup tight end, Ezekiel Elliott, practicing in full. Dallas is checking all the boxes here, so that's really good to see. And then on the Washington side, a couple defensive players listed out here. The kicker's questionable. That's weird. Terry McLaurin was, I guess, the one guy that I caught note of here. He's questionable. He did not practice Monday, limited Tuesday, and full practice today. I think that was an estimation. So Terry McLaurin should be fine. You're going to want to get him in your lineups for sure. And then I don't know what Antonio Gibson's deal was, but not practicing Monday, maybe that's just a day off, and then full Tuesday and full Wednesday. So overall, pretty healthy for both sides of the ball here. And then let's quick look at the fantasy points allowed to each position here. We got a couple teams that are pretty good against certain situations here. So we see the Washington football team. They got 3 red matchups here. They're one of the best teams against the quarterback points, 17.4. Top 5 against the run, 20.5. So we'll see if Ezekiel Elliott can do RB1 numbers in this one. And then the Washington football team, man, because they're such a good pass rushing team and they get to the quarterback, they limit the receivers pretty good here. So they're the second best team against wide receivers, allowing 29.1 fantasy points in PPR leagues. And then the one spot you can get them is going to be the tight end. So they allow 13.5. That ranks 21st. So then on the Cowboys side here, really generous against the quarterbacks. So we kind of like Alex Smith in super flex leagues, really generous here. Dallas moved into the second to last place in PPR points allowed to receivers. So we're going to Terry McLaurin. I know he's on the injury report. He's going to play. He practiced in full today. So I think it's going to be a really good spot for Terry. And then these the running backs and the tight ends, they're kind of middle of the road here, so we're not scared about our guys here. So looking at the start-sit chart, I do have Alex Smith and Andy Dalton both ranked as quarterback 2s in Superflex. I don't think I would trust them in standard one-quarterback leagues, but Andy Dalton, they look pretty good. He threw 3 touchdowns last weekend. Alex Smith has got the Washington football team, winning games and playing some pretty good offense. So I like both guys here. Ezekiel Elliott, I do have him listed as an RB1. And I did note that the Washington football team, 5th best team against the running backs in PPR leagues. I'm going to roll with Ezekiel Elliott. I have him as an RB1. I'm kind of limiting my expectations, but just make sure you get him in your lineup. If they get near the red zone, they're going to try to feed Zeke the ball once they get there. And then we did note Antonio Gibson, man. I should probably have Antonio Gibson listed as an RB1 because we saw, back in, I think this was week 7 or 8, Antonio Gibson gets the ball 20 times, 128 yards, and a touchdown. He no catches, just 1 target in that game, but really Antonio Gibson's been playing pretty good football for a converted wide receiver as a rookie. So I like Antonio Gibson here. He's a fringe RB1. Terry McLaurin, go ahead and fire him up. Again, I think he had 7 for 90 and 1 touchdown in this one, along of 52, 11 targets. We should continue to see Alex Smith favor him in the passing game. And then we got Logan Thomas here, just because the Cowboys, they're middle of the road against the tight end, 12.5 points. If you can get 12.5 points out of your tight end, I think you're doing pretty good here. And I guess the bull case for Logan Thomas, if we go down and look at the opportunity report for Washington, they really don't use another tight end at all. They got Logan Thomas taking 90% of the snaps. He had 5 targets last week. They even gave him a rushing attempt. So they try to get him the ball. They call his number maybe 5-6 times a game. He does have an opportunity for a touchdown here. And then, like I said, they hardly use these other tight ends don't get targets. These guys are more blocking, kind of tight ends there. So I do like Logan Thomas as a streamer. And then we're looking at J.D. McKissic here. And the thing that I noticed with our guy J.D. McKissic is in games that Washington is favored to lose, that's when J.D. McKissic gets the boost in targets. But in games where they're favored to win and be in control of the game, which is not a lot, that's when he dips in the target. So last week against Cincinnati, this was a game that they controlled pretty much from the get-go. He had a lower day, so only 3 catches, 26 yards. He had some nice runs, 6 for 43. So I think at worst you're probably looking at, and then you can see here against Dallas, he ended up with 7.1. So I think on the low end of outcomes, you're going to get maybe 7 to 9 points. But if this game is a more competitive game than last time, then you're looking at these, 11s, these 14s, these 17s. So I do think J.D. McKissic has a low-end RB2, in PPR leagues. And if Dallas gets ahead and they have to kind of abandon the run, you can maybe see J.D. McKissic all of a sudden, he's probably not going to get these 14 and 15 targets anymore, but 8 targets, 6, 7 catches. That's definitely within the possibilities here. So I do like J.D. McKissic. I'm keeping my eye on Steven Sims and Cam Sims. These guys might be, receivers that you plug in on your FanDuels and your DraftKings tomorrow. Last weekend, we did see Terry McLaurin's always going to dominate the snaps for Washington, but Cam Sims with 84% snaps. Steven Sims is coming back slowly from injury, but he gets 32% snaps, and then he does get the lone touchdown in the passing game from Alex Smith. So maybe one of these guys can catch a random touchdown if you want to fill out one of those lineups. But overall, pretty good Washington football side there. I'm thinking about starting the defense just because they had a pretty good game against them last time. And then on the Cowboys side here, I'm getting more and more optimistic about what Andy Dalton can do here. I guess the Vikings defense, not exactly world beaters, but he played pretty well. He ended up here. Let's pull up those numbers. Andy Dalton did throw 3 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott, this team was off a bye last weekend, so they were kind of ready to roll, and the offensive line was healthy, and they were able to outdo Minnesota in Minnesota. So we see Andy Dalton, 3 touchdowns, 203 yards, interception. I could see something like this happen, another 200, 250 yards and maybe 2 touchdowns in this one. Ezekiel Elliott, they got him rolling, 21 attempts, 103 yards. And then the receivers, Michael Gallup, he's been leading the team in snaps, but we just can't trust Michael Gallup worth a damn in our fantasy lineup. So we're not starting Michael Gallup. If you have him, leave him on your bench. If he can do anything in this matchup, we'll consider him going forward. But like we said at the beginning here, the Washington football team, they got some red matchups here. They're the second best team against wide receivers in PPR leagues here. So under 30 points, to the receivers, pretty good against quarterbacks and pretty good against running backs. So how does this, how do we evaluate this? Michael Gallup, I'm not starting him. Amari Cooper, we did note that in the tough matchup early in the year, Cooper still caught 7 for 80. He was kind of the lone guy that did anything for the team that day. So I think we're still starting Amari Cooper no matter what. He went 6 for 81 last week. And then you got CeeDee Lamb here, who had that reach back grab and kind of just one-handed it to finish it there. I do think CeeDee Lamb can be a wide receiver 3 flex. I don't know how excited I am about it, but it really depends on your options. So if you do have CeeDee Lamb and you have a couple other receivers that you're thinking of, let me know in the comments or hit me up on Twitter before the game starts and we can evaluate that. But again, he caught 4 for 34 and a touchdown, 12 yards rushing. I think he did have the 2-point conversion in that game too. So it was a pretty nice game from CeeDee Lamb, but it was the Vikings. They do allow quite a bit of receiver points here. So I'm optimistic about Lamb. I'm starting Cooper. I'm not starting Michael Gallup. And I guess that leaves us here with Dalton Schultz, tight end. I think Dalton Schultz scored a touchdown last weekend too. So we see Dalton Schultz. He's going to dominate the snaps, 91%, 6 targets, 4 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown. So I like what Dalton Schultz is putting out. And we do see that if there's one position to have success against Washington's defense, it's going to be the tight end. That's the only green spot they got here, 13.5 points. I think you'll take that. And because we know Dalton Schultz is getting 91% of the snaps, basically in my head, I say I'm going to take 90% of 13.5 and 10, 11 points seems doable for a tight end there of Dalton Schultz's caliber. So pretty optimistic about the Cowboys offense in this one. I think they can kind of buck the Washington, defensive trend that we've been seeing. Tony Pollard looks good. He should not be on waiver wires. If you can grab him, hold on to him. He looked really good last weekend in that long touchdown run. And then just a couple of depth receivers here to note. But the defenses in this one, I think I'm going to lean towards Washington just because Andy Dalton could, force some turnovers. Alex Smith's good for turnovers too. But I did notice, the Cowboys played better last weekend than we thought. I think I'm going to upgrade this or downgrade this to a no just because I like Antonio Gibson, McLaurin. I think there's going to be some big plays there. So I think that's going to do it for the Washington and the Dallas Cowboys game. We just covered both games for the Thursday nights or for the Thursday slate here. I think if anyone has any more questions, I'm willing to hang out here. We're going on about 27 minutes. We got a few people hanging out in the chat room still, so I'm definitely open to answering some questions. Tomorrow, let's see. So Thanksgiving tomorrow, man. Because we don't have a night game now, I think I was questioning. I think I was talking about maybe doing this Friday morning, but now that we don't have a Thursday night football game, I'm probably going to come on live around 6 o'clock tomorrow night. So I'll set that up, and we're going to cover all of the noon games for Sunday. So I think I have 8 or 9 games there. That should be a pretty lengthy show. So we'll cover that, and then I'll be back on Friday covering the 3 o'clock games and the Sunday night, Monday night game here. We got one more question here from our guy Rob. Let's see what this is. So Boyd, Beasley, or Cooks in our flex. So, man, I kind of like Brandon Cooks in this one just because Deshaun Watson had a really good game last weekend. And that was against the Patriots. And now we're playing Detroit, and Randall Cobb's out, and so is Kenny Stills. So I think we're going to see a concentration of targets for our guys here. I'm just trying to get to Houston. So we know Fuller and Cooks are going to be on the field a lot. Cobb was only in for 8% of the snaps, Stills only 7%. And if Watson's going to throw the ball 37 times, I do think Cooks and Fuller, these guys can both get theirs. It was kind of a low volume day for Brandon Cooks, only 4 for 85, but that's 12.5 points. I think we'll take that going up against a tougher defense last week in New England. And now they're going to get the Detroit Lions, who are a green matchup here. We got a lot of green matchups in this game. So the Lions allowing almost 39 points to the wide receivers here. I do think we could see something pretty good. Just out of curiosity, I'm really nervous about Tyler Boyd. I think it's totally okay if you wanted to bench Boyd, Higgins, your Cincinnati Bengals, and just wait and see. It's Brandon Allen. You don't want to lose because you whipped out Tyler Boyd, who had 2 for 23 or something, and the Bengals just completely suck. So at receiver here, I'm just curious to see where Detroit ranks in touchdowns given up here. So the Lions, they've only given up 8 touchdowns to the wide receiver, so that's not as much as I was hoping for. I think they're more of a yard situation here. So yeah, the Lions have given up the 5th most wide receiver yards, and then in terms of receptions here, Lions given up the 6th. So to me, that sounds like Brandon Cooks, getting 5 or 6 catches and getting some big yards per catch there. So I like that. For some reason, I think teams are just running on them when they get in close. I'm pretty sure the Lions give up the most rushing touchdowns on the season so far. So I do like Cooks. And then just looking at the other guy real quick here, Cole Beasley. I love Cole Beasley. I think John Brown, I think they've already ruled him out. Let's just look at that. Let's look at, do I have the practice report up here? Let me just pull that up real quick. I think I got that on here somewhere. So practice reports, and we're looking at Buffalo. If John Brown's already been ruled out, I'm open to getting Cole Beasley in the lineup. So they got John Brown questionable here. I mean, Cole Beasley's a super safe guy for PPR leagues. It is a pretty good matchup going up against the Chargers, but I think just because I know Cooks and Fuller are going to be the primary targets tomorrow, I think I'm going to roll with Brandon Cooks in this one, and hopefully we can celebrate on that touchdown catch. So we're doing that. And then looks like we got another question here from our guy Patrick Sigg. Should I start Michael Thomas, Cole Beasley, Mike Venus, or DJ Moore? I love Mike Venus. We should probably start Mike Evans. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second here, but I think the one guy that sticks out the most is Michael Thomas. So Patrick, how many do we need to use here? Do we need 3 receivers here, or is this a 2 situation? How many guys are we picking here? I think Michael Thomas is probably the best play of the group here. Here, we're gonna just close out a lot of this stuff. So we're looking at Michael Thomas. I think he's got a pretty good matchup going up against Denver. I like him. He's been getting the targets from Taysom Hill. Cole Beasley, again, we were just talking about John Brown probably not playing in this one, and it is against the Chargers. And here's my thinking with Cole Beasley. I like getting Cole Beasley in my lineup when it's a tougher matchup because from what I've seen, Josh Allen, he's gonna smash teams if they're bad at the secondary, and if they can get anybody free, it's going to be Cole Beasley when the team is struggling. So he's kind of the struggle target. And then you got Mike Evans going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're one of the best teams against the wide receiver right now. I know Nelson Aguilar had a pretty good game, but because Mike Evans is competing for targets with Godwin, Antonio Brown, all of a sudden, I think Antonio Brown's got almost like 30 targets in 3 games with Tom Brady. And then DJ Moore. I think it's going to be between Michael Thomas and DJ Moore for me. I think I'm going to like DJ Moore going up against Minnesota. I think that game's in Carolina. I can't remember correctly, but DJ Moore, man, he's put 2 really good games together. So I think we also got another comment here from Patrick. So he's got Keenan Allen in the Bob Wood show. So only 1 flex. Holy crap, man! Your receivers are freaking great. We can't even get. Oh my god! So wow. So Keenan Allen and Rob Woods, man, those guys are locked in, and we're gonna have to bench one of Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, and DJ Moore. I'm probably ruling out Cole Beasley for sure. I think I'm going to pass on Mike Evans because he's got more competition for targets. And then it's between Thomas and DJ Moore for me. And I could kind of make the same argument for DJ Moore that I just made with Evans, is that he's got more competition for targets. Whether it's Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, I think they kind of play hot potato sometimes, and it can be anyone's day. Whereas Michael Thomas right now, that's who Taysom Hill's going to throw the ball to. So I like Michael Thomas probably the most. Maybe consider your guy DJ Moore there. So thanks for the question, Patrick. Hope that helps. We got Bob Ross. Bob Ross is hanging out tonight. We got Kareem Hunt. Will Kareem Hunt be playable with Chubb back, or should I play Chris Carson after the injury? So actually here, I'm going to pull up another screen share here because it's kind of crazy that I've noticed something here with our guy Kareem Hunt. And we know Nick Chubb is back, which is great. We love Nick Chubb. If you're a Kareem Hunt owner, though, you really haven't noticed it that Nick Chubb was back. So let me just pull up this screen share real quick. And if you're new to the Fantasy Fellowship, I do have this article on here. If you just kind of scroll to, it's also on the homepage. If you just click on the opportunity report, this is going to show you pretty much everything that you need that happened last weekend. So I'm going to break down the snaps and all the stats. So we're going to be looking at Kareem Hunt here for the Cleveland Browns, and it's alphabetical, so just keep rolling down until you get to the Cleveland Browns. But Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt's getting more snaps, 54% to Chubb's 45%, so he's on the field more. Baker only attempted 22 passes, so this is like a worst case scenario in the PPR department here. Only 1 target, 1 catch, 10 yards. But man, Kareem Hunt, 13 carries. I know it was 11 yards, nothing great, but he gets the touchdown. That's what surprised me. Is there was another instance where they're in the red zone and they're giving Kareem Hunt the ball too, so he could have had 2 touchdowns. So I do like Kareem Hunt that he's. I mean, I know he's competing with Nick Chubb, but 54 snaps to Nick Chubb's 45. And then if we, I do have a backlog of these opportunity reports. So if we just click back to week 10 and let's scroll down here to Cleveland. Almost there. And again, Kareem Hunt, 58% of the snaps to Nick Chubb's 43. Now, this was Chubb's first game back, so that's why it took him, there's a wider gap in the snap counts. But you see 19 attempts for Hunt, 19 for Nick Chubb. And then again, I think this is going to be like a typical, stat line for for Hunt in the passing game, 3 or 4 catches, 30, 40 yards. But the 19 carries, man, that was pretty wild. So I'm really not too scared of throwing out Kareem Hunt. I think as long as you think of him as an RB2, I think that can be a pretty good situation to be in. And they play Jacksonville this weekend, so we're probably going to get quite a bit of running attempts there out of Cleveland. That's a team that wants to run the ball anyway. So I think I'm going to say continue rolling with Kareem Hunt. And I know that Chris Carson's back, but they play Philadelphia. And I just want to show you guys. So this is probably my favorite. This is a huge reference that I use here. This is the website fftoday.com. And if we just hit the stats tab and then you roll down a little bit here, that's where I get a lot of my information from. So it's the fantasy points allowed. So we're going to click on the running backs. And I pretty much only play PPR league. So I just filter here by PPR. And let's take a look here and see what the Philadelphia Eagles are allowing in the running department here. So the Eagles, let's flip that to top to bottom. And the Philadelphia Eagles, 7th best against the running back in PPR leagues, only about 20.9 points to the running back groups. And then if we look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they rank 27th here. So 26.9, that's an extra 6-7 points per game there. I think I'm going to roll with Kareem Hunt. And the reason I'm hesitant on Chris Carson is because Carlos Hyde looked pretty good last week. They gave him a lot of touches, and he ran pretty hard against the Cardinals. I think we could see them ease Chris Carson back. Seattle's thinking long term, so they're not just going to bring Carson in and give him 90% of the snaps and just give him 25 touches. I think we could see a little bit of a ease back in situation for Chris Carson. So we're going to roll with our guy Kareem Hunt, I think, in this one. So thanks for the question, Bob Ross. That was a good question. A lot of good questions tonight. I want to thank Patrick Sigg for hanging out tonight. We got our boy Bob Ross, Robert Owens. Let's see who else was in the chat room tonight. I don't know how to say this one. Is that Mimolo3? Thanks for hanging out. And yeah, man, there's a good show tonight. So I think if you guys have any more questions here, it looks like we got one more here from Patrick Sigg. So we just realized we got Marvin Jones as well. Is he a good option? So I'm a little bit nervous about Marvin Jones just because he's actually played some pretty good games on Thanksgiving. And I do like Marvin Jones. I think he's got the opportunity to do some nice things. But let's just take a look and see what the Texans have been allowing here. So they're the 11th worst against the wide receivers. They've allowed 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, about 40 PPR points. And he should be the leading target guy for Matt Stafford tomorrow. So let's see here. I mean, receivers against them lately have been smashing. Holy crap. So Damiere Byrd, 26.3. The Browns, that was a rain game, 7.8 points. But DJ Chark, 27.6. Devontae Adams, 44.6. Oh, my God. Okay, we got to rethink this Marvin Jones situation. So Patrick, I don't know how we get Marvin Jones in over the lineup. Like, we're starting Keenan Allen for sure. So Patrick was asking earlier that he's got Keenan Allen and Bob Woods for sure lined up as receivers. And then for his depth, he was asking Michael Thomas, Cole Beasley, Mike Evans, or DJ Moore. I think Marvin Jones has such a wide range of outcomes. It wouldn't surprise me if he has a good game tomorrow. But it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't have a bad game either. So I think I'm okay with leaving Marvin Jones on the bench. If you wanted to get some skin in the game, you can play Marvin Jones, and then we'll make the 2 decisions later. But I'm a little bit nervous for Detroit. Hopefully DeAndre Swift plays and that offense can look a little bit better. But Marvin Jones, I think I prefer other guys on your list that feel a little bit more safe there. So we got a question here from Jenna ER Nurse. How's it going? Thanks for hanging out. Happy Thanksgiving. We got 2 flex spots, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Michael Thomas. Interesting. So we got to wait and see with Adam Thielen. He's on the COVID list. I heard that he tested positive and then he tested negative. I don't know if there's some faulty corona testing things going on there in Minnesota, but Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Michael Thomas. This one's tough. So Cooper Kupp just had a really, really good day going up against Tampa Bay last weekend. This week they're going to play San Francisco, which is a little bit tougher matchup, I think. Let me just pull up and see what teams have been doing against the 49ers. So San Francisco, there they are. They're the 11th best team against wide receiver here. So let's just click it and see what they've been allowing for points. Some of the best games against them. So let's see here. New Orleans couldn't really do anything, but Devontae Adams, smash spot. DK Metcalf, smash. Jacoby Myers, 10 points. Bob Woods, 14. Preston Williams. There's some big games here. So I feel pretty good about Cooper Kupp for sure. And just based off last weekend's game, I think they're going to continue to ride the hot hand there. So that's between Justin Jefferson and Michael Thomas. And if Adam Thielen's out, I think you got to get Justin Jefferson in the lineup. He's been playing some really good football. And then I get it. I mean, Michael Thomas they're going to Denver. I think the Saints can have a pretty good game against them without, having to do too much on offense. So I think I would rank them Kupp, Jefferson, Michael Thomas. And then if Thielen's back, I totally get it if you want to put Michael Thomas in there. So that could be something we reevaluate later. But I think for now, ride with Kupp for sure. We'll monitor Adam Thielen, but I think Justin Jefferson going up against Carolina, that could be a pretty good game there too. But I think I'm going to lean towards Jefferson for now just because he's got that big play potential and he's playing some good football right now. So thanks for the question, Jenna. We got another question here from Emperor Triple E. Is Ezekiel Elliott for James Robinson a good trade? So we would be getting James Robinson in this situation. Let's take a look here. Let's look at the Jaguars' schedule. Moving on down. So the Jaguars are going to play Cleveland, Minnesota, Tennessee, Baltimore, Chicago. I don't want anything to do with those two teams. Weeks 15 and 16, I don't want to play those defenses. But I like Tennessee, I like Minnesota, and Cleveland's not bad. But the Jaguars aren't playing anything right now. So that makes me a little bit nervous. If we go to ESPN, I just want to look at the Cowboys schedule the rest of the way. And the thing about the Cowboys, man, is they have, compared to the Jaguars, they have a little bit more to be playing for. So I think you can expect a little bit better effort out of the Cowboys. They did get Zach Martin. They're one of their starting tackles back, so that's good situation to be in. And they play in the NFC West, man, or the NFC East. So they get Washington, they get Baltimore, then they're going to get Cincinnati, the 49ers, and the Eagles. So that's kind of a tough matchup too. So it's kind of like a horse apiece right now. I think if you're going to ask me to ride or die with one of those guys, I'm probably going to ride. And James Robinson's been so good in so many situations, but it's going to be Mike Glennon this week. I don't know. I think I'm gonna roll with Ezekiel Elliott, but I totally get it. I mean, I have shares of James Robinson this year, and I haven't sold him. I wanted to keep him, so he's probably going to be a solid running back too. Good, 10.4 for the most part. But Ezekiel Elliott, I think I'm going to roll with Ezekiel Elliott on this one as the Cowboys are healthier and they're looking to win the NFC East. So no problem, Bob Ross. Thanks for hanging out, man. Patrick Sigg with another question here. Mike Davis, Kalen Ballage, or James Conner? So Mike Davis, we got to wait and see what Christian McCaffrey's up to. He did practice today. He had the red practice jersey on. I don't know if that means anything, but I think the last time he did that, he ripped it off and put a regular jersey on like he was cool. So Mike Davis, I think if we do see Christian McCaffrey's not going to play, we got Carolina versus Minnesota. So I kind of like Mike Davis. And the real kicker with Mike Davis is if Teddy Bridgewater plays, I think that's going to boost Mike Davis in PPR league. So we'll watch for that. If Teddy plays, I do like Mike Davis. Kalen Ballage, who's been playing some pretty good football, actually. He's been a running back too for the most part in all formats. But we got Austin Eckler coming back, so we don't know what's going to happen there. I would imagine all of Ballage's PPR value kind of disappears. They're going to want to throw the ball to Eckler for sure and maybe just bang in between the tackles with Ballage. So I'm a little bit nervous there. And then what do we do with James Conner? I want to pull up and see let's first take a look and see what happened in this earlier game for the Ravens and the Steelers. Now this time it's in Pittsburgh, so that might be a boost for the Pittsburgh side. And just looking at James Conner, I mean, 47 yards and a touchdown. It's a tough matchup, but he's still able to get in the touchdown there. And then 3 for 13. So I think I'm going to lean with Mike Davis and James Conner in this one. And just Ballage is getting kind of wrecked by the Austin Eckler return there. So I think I'm going to roll with Mike Davis and James Conner. I got another question here from Emperor EEE. As my RB2, should I start Gurley, Mike Davis, or Kareem Hunt? I think it's going to be Kareem Hunt going up against Jacksonville. That's a pretty good situation to be in. Todd Gurley's got he missed practice today with a knee injury. I know. So typically Wednesday is it's kind of like a veteran rest day for the most part. So I don't know. I mean, the Falcons also have nothing really to play for, so maybe they're just being cautious with Gurley because they want to make sure he's healthy for next season. But I just want to pull up the practice reports here. Atlanta. So we got Todd Gurley here not practicing with the knee injury. But, I mean, they held out a lot of guys today. Hayden Hurst didn't practice, and Julio Jones got a limited day in. So I'm a little bit nervous here. The Falcons do have a tough matchup going up against I mean, it's not really a tough matchup. They're playing the Raiders, but I don't expect a lot out of that one. So I'm monitoring this Todd Gurley situation. I think I would lean with Kareem Hunt for sure. If Mike Davis is going to play with Teddy Bridgewater, I'm open to that. And Carolina plays Minnesota, so I think I'm going to rank them Hunt, Davis, and Gurley. And here's another thing with Todd Gurley that I saw. So going back to my opportunity report here, so we're going to click on Week 11 because that was last week. So they got blown out by the Saints. You know, they played well. They couldn't score touchdowns. But Brian Hill had more snaps than Todd Gurley, so 26 snaps to 23 snaps. I don't like that. And now that he's missing practice, I don't trust it. And we'll see what happens going forward. But I think they're just kind of being a little bit more cautious with Todd Gurley. They want him to be able to play healthy next year. So I think we might see a little bit more Brian Hill, maybe kind of a 50-50 situation down the stretch there. So a little bit nervous there, but thanks for the question, guys. We got a lot of good questions in here. Anybody else have any questions before we get out of here? We're going on about 47 minutes live here. I think I'll hang out for another few minutes if you guys got more questions. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit I had a goal of hitting 100 subscribers this season, so we're almost there. I think it's at 98 right now, but we're just moving here. So Patrick says, Ballage and Michael Thomas are both questionable. Definitely going to start Davis and Moore if they don't play. So I don't make too much. Wednesday practice, like that's Wednesday is usually a day where veterans don't practice, and because Michael Thomas has already been kind of dinged up, they're probably just being cautious with him. So I don't know if teams are going to put out practice reports for Thanksgiving. I would imagine they all have them in for a morning practice. But I do think Thomas, at least by Friday, if for practice reports, Friday is the most important day. Because if your guy is not practicing or he's hurt, if he gets a limited or a full practice on Friday, that usually means that he's going to be good to go. So we'll check back in on Michael Thomas on Friday. I do think I'm kind of nervous about Ballage because I think Austin Eckler is going to kind of wreck stuff for him. But yeah, Mike Davis, DJ Moore, those are both really good plays. DJ Moore's been hot lately. So he just had his season high 127 yards there. So we do like our guy DJ Moore there. One more question here from Emperor EEE. So as quarterback, do we think we should start Ryan Tannehill or Cameron Newton? Let's take a look here. I want to pull up, let's go to the homepage. And we're just on the fantasyfellowship.com. If you guys are new here, I do have my start sit questions. And let me just answer this one real quick too. So yeah, Patrick, I do this. I'm trying to do it every day, Monday through Friday at about 6 o'clock. Typically, my schedule is Wednesday nights. I will talk about the Thursday night football game. That's the next day. So we have 2 games this week. So we talked about those earlier. And then I kind of open it up for questions and whatever else you guys need. And then on Thursday night, when I go live at 6 o'clock, that's when I talk about all of the noon games on Sunday. So there's usually 7, 8 noon games. And then my Friday show is going to be all of the 3 o'clock games and Sunday night and Monday night football. So I try to do just break it down like that and then just answer questions as we go along. But yeah, trying to do these shows regularly here. So we are looking at, let me see here. We were talking about Emperor's question, Ryan Tannehill or Cam Newton? And then we got a couple other questions here from Harris YT we'll get to in a second. So Ryan Tannehill, tough matchup against the Colts, man. If you guys remember here, the last time these two teams played, it was just not good. Ryan Tannehill, probably his worst career game against, looks like I don't have those filled in yet here. So let's just pull up FF Today. And I want to show you, because the Colts, man, I think they're the #1 team against the quarterbacks here. Aaron Rodgers had a good game against them last weekend, though. I think we could see some good things out of Ryan Tannehill now that they have a game behind them and they're kind of figuring themselves out against the Colts. But I guess because Rodgers bumped them up here, so the Colts are the 4th best team, 14.4 points. Then we got Cam Newton. The Patriots are playing the Cardinals. And Arizona, where is Arizona? Cardinals ranked 23rd here, 19.3 points. They're allowing a lot of rushing yards here too, 296 and a touchdown. A good amount of points here to the quarterbacks. I think I'm going to roll with Cam Newton, but I mean, Ryan Tannehill. Let's look at this. I have another website that I like to use. It's called StatMuse. And what's cool about StatMuse is you can, I mean, if you have a question and you want to know, let's see what Ryan Tannehill did against the Colts. So we're going to type in Ryan Tannehill versus Colts, and then I'm going to add the word game logs. And so it's going to give me all of Ryan Tannehill's games against the Colts. So we're looking at all his stats here. So we know that he was with the Titans last year. And in 2 games against the Colts, we see 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, 147 and 1 touchdown. So history is not really on his side here. So I think I'm going to roll with Cam Newton going up. Cam Newton's at home against the Arizona Cardinals here. So I do think I like Cam Newton in that situation there. We got Harris YT asking, is Wayne Gallman Jr. good for DFS? I've been telling people all week that I think Wayne Gallman's probably in one of the best situations for like a free, if you can get Wayne Gallman off the waiver wire, I was telling people to do it. So I do think Wayne Gallman going up against, who do they play? They play the Bengals. They play the Bengals this weekend without Brandon Allen, or with Brandon Allen at quarterback, and no Giovanni Bernard probably, no Joe Mixon. Like the Bengals, man, that's going to be a game where I think the Giants, they control the game from the get-go. They're going to run the ball a ton. And I'm just looking up to see what our Cincinnati Bengals allow to the running backs here. And the Giants are coming off a bye, so they're going to be feeling pretty good and pretty healthy. The Giants have also won 2 games in a row, and they're right in the thick of it with the NFC East here. So just looking for the Cincinnati Bengals here. They're middle of the road against the running backs. They've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns, 2 touchdowns in the receiving game here, about 23.1 points. But if you think about Wayne Gallman, he scored 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games. And I don't think Devontae Freeman's going to be back. Alfred Morris is just the backup. I think I'm going to be recommending Wayne Gallman there because he should be a pretty cheap price. I don't know what his price cost is on FanDuel or DraftKings, but I do like Wayne Gallman this week in a very favorable matchup for New York Giants. So Patrick Sigg here, if Julio Jones plays, is there a risk to start him since he could potentially get hurt like last week, or is he must start? So I like Julio Jones. He's so hard to figure out because it seems like whenever we start him, that's like the game that he gets hurt, and then we have to play this has happened so many times with Julio Jones. So Atlanta going up against who does Atlanta play? I can't recall. The Raiders. They play the Raiders. So it should be a good matchup for Julio Jones. And the positive thing right now is I didn't expect him to practice today, but we looked at the report earlier and he practiced limited today. So that's a really good sign. I do remember watching that game because I was watching Taysom Hill, but Julio Jones on the sideline, like he was like kind of like running and trying to pep himself up, like he was trying to go back in. So I don't think this is as big of a deal. And if he's practicing already today in limited fashion, I think he's going to be on track to play without much of a risk. So I think I'm going to play Julio Jones if he plays for sure. Unless you have, I saw your lineups. You had some really good receivers. So if you have another receiver that I think I would recommend playing, we'll look at that later. But we got Harris saying, so $18 on Yahoo. I guess, so I don't think I've played, maybe been a year or so since I played on Yahoo. So like who else for a comparable price? Like what are some of the other running backs priced out at? If he's $18, like I'm curious what what would Antonio Gibson be, or like some of these other running. Well, he's playing tomorrow, so for DFS, that's going to be a Sunday game. So I guess just out of context, what would some of the other prices be for running backs? But we're just hanging out, answering some questions here. Patrick Sigg says we got Coleman too. No, man, no worries. Is he a better option than Mike Davis? So that one's tough because I think both guys are pretty strong RB2s. I do think Mike Davis going up against the Minnesota Vikings. We did see Ezekiel Elliott have a really nice game last weekend. We know that Mike Davis is not Ezekiel Elliott, but we should like the Panthers to be able to move the ball. And if Teddy Bridgewater's quarterback, I think that's pretty nice for PPR. And then Wayne Gall is just such a good matchup. I think if you have Mike Davis and Christian McCaffrey's not going to play, you got to get one more game out of Mike Davis. I think you got to get one more game out of him against Minnesota. That could be a back and forth game too. So I think Davis could have a really nice PPR day. So I think I'm going to lean towards that direction. But if Teddy Bridgewater don't play, I think I'll lean towards Wayne Gallman. Justin Jefferson versus Nelson Aguilar. So Aguilar is going up against the let's see here. He's going up against the Atlanta Falcons. So I just want to pull up on here. This is tough, man. So Atlanta, the third worst team against the wide receivers, 43.4 PPR points per game. So it's a really good spot for Nelson Aguilar. I think if Adam Thielen plays, that might actually help Justin Jefferson, to be honest. So I'm watching Adam Thielen. I just feel like Nelson Aguilar, man, it's hard to trust him. It seems like every other week he blows up. It's a really good matchup against Atlanta. But I think this is what I would ask is, who, if one of these guys were to blow up, which one would you be more comfortable with blowing up on your bench? I think I'm going to start Justin Jefferson just because of star power. And it just seems like Aguilar is kind of on this every other week situation. I know it's Atlanta, but we could see a lot of touchdowns from Josh Jacobs in the running game or Darren Waller. Whereas Justin Jefferson, like, if Kirk Cousins is throwing the ball, it's going to Jefferson or Adam Thielen. So it's a pretty good volume tree for him. So I think I'm going to roll with Justin Jefferson in his matchup against the Panthers. So who's my top quarterback for Sunday? Interesting. Let me just pull up something here. So I haven't really thought much about this. This is a fun question, though. So I'm just pulling up an ESPN league that I have here because I want to see some of the projections and just who everyone's playing against here. So we're asking, who is my top quarterback play? Assuming this is like a DFS type question for my guy Ben Chris here. So Kyler Murray makes me nervous. Patrick Mahomes against Tampa Bay, you're going to have to pay up for him, but Tampa Bay just got lit up by Jared Goff. I think Mahomes could be worth the money there. I do like Josh Allen going up against the Chargers. You see he's got a really good matchup here. That's a 26th ranking matchup there. Deshaun Watson's got a good matchup, but that's Thursday. And then Justin Herbert. I think the Buffalo Charger game, I think if you're playing DFS, I think that's going to be a game that I'm going to attack because Herbert's been playing so good lately. And then you're going to tell me they're going to get Austin Eckler back. That's a huge help for Justin Herbert. So I think I really like Josh Allen. I really like Justin Herbert. That game in Buffalo feels like it could be a really high scoring game there. So I'm into that. Otherwise, Taysom Hill against Denver, like we know he actually could have had more fantasy points. They had, I think it was a touchdown even called back. But we see 233 passing yards against Atlanta. No passing touchdowns, but he gets 2 rushing touchdowns. It could be a nice Taysom Hill day up there in Denver. So I think that's going to be my list there. I really like this. For as far as noon games on Sunday, Herbert versus Josh Allen, that's going to be probably the one that I end up watching the most. So I think those guys would be probably my favorite options of the weekend. Chase Edmonds or Nyheim Hines. Man, Nyheim Hines had like a career game not too long ago against Tennessee Titans. So I think I do think Nyheim Hines is a good play. But Chase Edmonds, man, they're going to be playing against the Patriots. And basically in games where I think Arizona is like going to be in a tight one or favored, they're going to probably throw the ball, pass it a little more, which favors Chase Edmonds. So I think both guys are in similar situations. But I think for now, I'm going to lean with Nyheim Hines because even though he didn't really get a lot of fantasy points against Green Bay last week, he had a touchdown called back. So it could have been a lot nicer. And I know Jonathan Taylor's playing a little bit better, but Naheem Hines, put him against Tennessee again. I think that's how I would go. But to be honest, I like both guys. So I think both guys have a good chance at double-digit PPR points. So I think I'm going to roll with Hines because of his history against the Titans earlier this year. So Wayne Gallman or Austin Eckler. I think I'm going to roll with Wayne Gallman because I'm assuming – so I'm really excited about Austin Eckler, but I think it might be not a full work of snap load for him. It's probably going to be maybe 40, 50%. I'd be shocked if he gets any more than that. And Wayne Gallman's in a smash spot against Cincinnati. So I think I'm going to roll with Wayne Gallman. And I think next week is going to be the week where everyone's starting Austin Eckler for sure. So who are we starting, though? As far as who does this question rely to there, Patrick? Who are we starting as far as the quarterback question? Oh, okay, I see. So you have Herbert and Josh Allen. Crap. Oh man. This one's in Buffalo. No John Brown probably. I think because essentially Josh Allen is the leading rusher for that team. I think I'm going to lean with Josh Allen. I love getting Herbert in there, but the Chargers are also, West Coast team flying East Coast for a noon game. That's like them waking up and playing at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I think I'm going to roll with Josh Allen. He seems to have a much safer floor. Maybe this could even be a trap game for Herbert. So I think I'm going to take Josh Allen there. He could rush for 2 touchdowns. He could throw for 3 touchdowns. Like there's a lot of outcomes there for Josh Allen. So I think I like him the best. And no problem there, Ben Chris. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Deontay Johnson or Chris Godwin, DFS. So that's going to be the late games on Sunday. So Deontay Johnson, let's see here. Going against the Ravens, I think in that game earlier this year, that was the game he got hurt like in the first quarter. I think he only had like 1 catch, 6 yards or something. So I'm a little bit nervous there. I think Chris Godwin's probably the safer call. Maybe Deontay Johnson has a higher ceiling. But Chris Godwin right now going against the Chiefs, I think he's going to be a lot lined up in the slot. And I'm assuming Tampa Bay is going to have to throw a ton in that game. And just because it's Pittsburgh, Baltimore, I don't expect that to have a lot of points. Whereas Chiefs-Bucks, that one could get pretty messy, high up in the points. I think I'm going to lean with Chris Godwin in that one. And Deontay Johnson's price is probably going to shoot up quite a bit. So I think you can probably get those guys at similar prices. I think I would go with Godwin in this one. So who are you starting in every position? Is this like a DFS question there, Patrick? So who are you starting as in every position? Oh, okay. You want me to like kind of roll down and look at the running backs, and we'll go through, matchups that I like here. So let's just pull up the running backs here. So of course, Dalvin Cook, smash spot going up against Carolina. They're a bottom 5 rushing defense. Alvin Kamara, I'm nervous about Alvin Kamara. He's on the injury report. He did have a foot injury that he was on the injury report last week. Zero catches last weekend. The first time in his career that he didn't catch a ball. I'm actually pretty nervous about him paired up with Taysom Hill because I think that might really affect his PPR potential. So he was limited at practice today with a foot injury. I think I think his days as an elite, RB top 5 running back for fantasy the next few weeks are kind of limited. So I'm nervous there. Derrick Henry against Indianapolis, you're still going to start him. Ezekiel Elliott, you're still starting him. Aaron Jones against Chicago, we're going to hope for some touchdowns there and just kind of keep rolling with that. Let me see what we got here in the chat room. So what position is the best position to upgrade in DFS if I have $9 left? Really depends on who your tight end is, I think. Tight end is one of my favorite points. If you can get, assuming this is a Sunday lineup, if you can get Travis Kelce, I think at this point, a lot of the lineups right now, just thinking about fantasy football in general, Travis Kelce, if you drafted Kelce in the 2nd round this year, your team is probably, towards the top of the list and going to the playoffs. So I think if you can get yourself a really good tight end, or basically the opposite end of the spectrum where you kind of just punt it. But I do like paying up for Travis Kelce. But I guess the other best position to upgrade in DFS, running backs who get touches. I'd like to spend up for running backs because with receivers, I have a pretty good knack for figuring out who's going to have a good matchup game, whether that's a lower end receiver like Antonio Brown. I like kind of getting those lower tier receivers, but I like to make sure I have some stud running backs for sure. So Waller or Kelsey this week? I know that. Whoa, what the hell is this question? Waller or Kelsey this weekend? Can we do both? You're gonna go Kelsey. I know Waller up against Atlanta. Man, let me think about this real quick because I'm pretty sure Atlanta's the worst team against the tight end. If you guys remember, I think it was a Monday night game earlier this year where Robert Tonyan goes off for 33.8. But ever since this game, Atlanta's been pretty, like, TJ Hawkinson had a good game, but they've been pretty decent against the tight ends here. So, I mean, I think this is what I like. If I bench Travis Kelsey and I missed like the 152 touchdown game, I'm gonna feel like an idiot. I'd be okay with betting against Darren Waller there. So I think I'm gonna go with Travis Kelsey against Tampa Bay. It's a tough matchup, but I do think I would have nightmares if I bench Travis Kelsey and I missed something nice. So big fan of Travis Kelsey on the Fantasy Fellow Show here. So do we play Alvin Kamara, PPR, if my other running backs are Myles Gaskin, Nicholas Chubb, or J.D. McKissick? Yeah, I'm playing Kamara and I'm playing Nick Chubb. For now, I do think McKissick is a safe play, whether it's for 10 to 12 PPR points. But I mean, Kamara is still, even though his PPR upside is going to be a little bit limited. So if I'm Sean Payton and I'm on Monday, after the game, I'm like looking at the box score and like, we didn't get Alvin Kamara a catch. Like, we should, Taysom Hill, man, we got to get this going here. So I'll put Alvin Kamara. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and we'll make sure we get him and Nick Chubb in the lineup if that's our options there. But I don't know. We've been going live over an hour here. I think I'm going to get off here. I got to go get some dinner. I'm just hanging out with the family this weekend. But I want to thank everyone for hanging out tonight. This was this was a really fun show. We had a lot of people in the comments in the chat room here asking some really good questions. I will be back tomorrow night, 6:00 after I don't know what time that Dallas-Washington game is, but I'll be going live again 6 p.m. If you guys like the YouTube version, you guys can hit subscribe, and we'll hang out in the future. But I also upload these to the podcast platform, so Spotify, if you guys like to listen and instead of watch, Spotify, Apple, iTunes has everything you need. So anybody can go on FF Today, man. Yeah, man, that's cool. I'm just using this FF Today here to see what some of the numbers that we're looking at in the past. So that's just one of my resources that I use here when I'm looking at questions. But for now, we're going to end the show here. We've been going live for a little bit over an hour. I want to thank everyone for hanging out. Good luck tomorrow. I'm going to go live again 6:00 tomorrow. So have a good Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys again. Peace.